In this episode, we take the big pile of centralized logs and turn it into something that actually helps you in real time. Monitoring, which is watching for security-relevant events and deciding when something needs attention. Beginners often imagine monitoring as a wall of screens with flashing warnings, but effective monitoring is usually calmer and more practical than that. The core idea is simple. Systems constantly produce signals, and some signals indicate normal activity while others suggest a mistake, a misconfiguration, or an attacker trying to break in. Alerts are the messages you generate when a signal crosses a line that should not be crossed, but the tricky part is choosing those lines so that alerts are meaningful rather than noisy. Tuning actionable alerts means shaping them so that when an alert fires, a reasonable person can look at it and know what it probably means and what to do next. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain what a security event is, why alerts can fail when they are too loud or too quiet, and how tuning helps a monitoring program support payment security instead of becoming background noise. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A security event is any recorded activity that has potential security meaning, but that definition is intentionally broad because meaning depends on context. A failed login attempt could be harmless, like a person mistyping a password, or it could be dangerous, like a scripted password guessing attack. A new account being created could be normal, like onboarding a new employee, or it could be suspicious, like an attacker creating a backdoor user. A system configuration change could be part of planned maintenance, or it could be a malicious attempt to weaken defenses. Monitoring is the process of collecting these events, interpreting them, and deciding which ones should trigger investigation or response. Beginners should notice that monitoring is not the same as logging, because logging records what happened, while monitoring is the active practice of noticing patterns and reacting to them. The goal is not to treat every event as an emergency, but to identify the small set of events that truly deserve attention. Actionable alerts are alerts that a team can realistically act on, and that is a higher bar than simply detecting something unusual. If an alert fires constantly for harmless reasons, people learn to ignore it, which is sometimes called alert fatigue. If an alert is too vague, like something suspicious happened, it forces responders to spend a long time figuring out what it refers to, which wastes time and increases stress. If an alert arrives too late, it may be useful as a report, but not as a warning, and the attacker may already have moved on. Beginners should think of an actionable alert like a smoke detector that is sensitive enough to detect real smoke, but not so sensitive that it triggers every time someone makes toast. It also helps if the alert includes context, such as which system was involved, which account was used, what the last known good behavior looked like, and what similar events occurred nearby in time. Actionable alerts are designed to support decisions, not to create more confusion. A major step in monitoring is deciding what to monitor, and that decision should be guided by risk and by what an organization can actually respond to. In payment environments, some event types tend to matter more because they relate directly to control of sensitive systems and data. Authentication events are high value, including logins, failed logins, MFA challenges, account lockouts, and logins from new locations or devices. Privilege events are also high value, including changes to administrative groups, permission grants, and creation of new privileged accounts. Changes to security controls matter, like disabling logging, altering firewall rules, changing access control lists, or modifying critical configurations. Access to sensitive data stores, especially unusual query patterns or access from unexpected systems, can also be important signals. The beginner lesson is that monitoring is not about watching everything equally. It is about prioritizing the events that represent the most likely and most damaging pathways to compromise. Once you know what to monitor, the next challenge is building detection logic that can distinguish normal from abnormal. The simplest detections are rule-based, such as alerting when a specific sensitive action occurs, like a new admin account creation. More nuanced detections use thresholds, such as alerting when there are more than a certain number of failed logins within a short time window. Some detections rely on sequences, like a login followed by a privilege change followed by a new network connection to a sensitive server. Beginners should understand that detection logic is basically a set of if-then statements applied to event streams, even when advanced tools use statistics or machine learning under the hood. The important part is that detections should be testable, meaning you can validate that they fire when expected and that they do not fire constantly for routine behavior. If you cannot explain why an alert exists and what it is looking for, it will be hard to tune and hard to trust. Tuning begins with the reality that the first version of most alert rules will be imperfect. In a new environment, you often do not know what normal looks like, and even small changes in behavior can create lots of false positives. Tuning means adjusting rules so they match real operational patterns without losing their ability to detect true threats. Sometimes tuning involves changing thresholds, like increasing the number of failed logins needed before an alert triggers, or shortening the time window to focus on burst behavior. Sometimes it involves adding context filters, like excluding expected service accounts that routinely authenticate in automated ways. Sometimes it involves adjusting severity, so that an alert becomes a low-priority notification unless it is combined with another signal. Beginners should see that tuning is not cheating. It is making the monitoring system honest about what matters and what can be acted on. A tuned alert is like a well-calibrated instrument, giving a meaningful reading rather than bouncing wildly. A key part of making alerts actionable is enriching them with context, because raw log lines often force responders to do extra work just to understand what they are seeing. Context can include asset importance, such as whether the system involved is part of the payment environment or a less sensitive workstation. It can include identity details, such as whether the account is privileged, whether it is a human or service identity, and what the account's usual behavior looks like. It can include network context, such as the source address, geographic region, or whether the connection came from a known corporate device. It can also include recent related events, like showing the last 10 authentication failures before a successful login. For beginners, context is the difference between someone shouting "problem" and someone saying "the back door opened at 2:12 a.m. and the alarm sensor was disabled 2 minutes later." The second message is far more actionable because it points directly toward what to check. Another important concept is alert routing, which is deciding who should see an alert and how quickly they need to see it. If every alert goes to everyone, people will tune out and important alerts may be missed. If alerts go only to a single person, they may be missed when that person is busy or unavailable. Routing often uses severity levels, where high-severity alerts demand immediate attention and low-severity alerts are reviewed during routine work. Beginners should understand that severity is not about how scary an alert sounds. It is about potential impact and confidence. An alert with high confidence but low impact might still be handled calmly, while a low confidence signal for a high-impact asset might be treated with caution and additional verification. Routing also includes escalation, meaning if a serious alert is not acknowledged, it gets elevated to ensure someone responds. Actionable monitoring is a team workflow, not only a technical configuration. Monitoring also has to account for adversaries who try to hide, because attackers often attempt to blend into normal activity or create distractions. They may generate large volumes of noise to bury their real actions, or they may move slowly to avoid threshold-based detections. They may also try to disable logging or monitoring tools once they obtain privileged access, which is why monitoring should include alerts for monitoring failure itself. Beginners should learn to treat silence as a signal in some cases, such as when a critical system suddenly stops sending logs or when an expected heartbeat event disappears. This is similar to noticing a smoke detector that has stopped blinking, which could mean its battery died, not that there is no smoke. A resilient monitoring program watches for both suspicious activity and the failure of the sensors that would normally detect suspicious activity. That dual approach helps keep evidence credible and helps detect attempts to blind the organization. A practical way to think about tuning is to focus on 3 outcomes: reducing false positives, reducing false negatives, and reducing time to understand. False positives are alerts that look concerning but are harmless, and they waste time and erode trust. False negatives are missed detections, where something harmful happens and no alert triggers, which is dangerous because it creates a false sense of safety. Time to understand is the amount of time it takes a responder to interpret an alert well enough to decide what to do. Tuning works on all three by adjusting rules, adding context, and improving clarity. Beginners should recognize that you cannot eliminate all false positives or false negatives, but you can manage them by prioritizing high-value detections and continuously improving based on real incidents and real operational behavior. A mature monitoring program learns over time, and tuning is the mechanism for that learning. For payment environments, monitoring should connect to the idea of protecting the systems that store, process, or transmit card data, and ensuring the controls around those systems remain intact. That means monitoring is not only about catching attackers, but also about catching risky changes and breakdowns in controls. For example, an alert for a firewall rule change might be about preventing accidental exposure, not only malicious tampering. An alert for a new remote access pathway might be about spotting an unapproved workflow that bypasses hardened access controls. An alert for access to a sensitive database from an unusual host might indicate a misrouted application component as much as it might indicate intrusion. Beginners should take away that monitoring supports safety and stability because it helps detect when the environment is drifting away from its intended secure state. When alerts are tuned well, they become early warnings that allow correction before problems turn into incidents. Another often missed aspect is measurement, because you need to know whether monitoring is improving or degrading over time. You can measure how many alerts occur, how many are true positives, how long it takes to acknowledge them, and how long it takes to resolve them. You can track which detections generate the most noise and which ones catch real issues. You can also test alerts through controlled exercises, where known events are generated to confirm the alert fires and contains the right context. Beginners should understand that testing is how you build confidence that your alarm system still works after changes to systems, networks, and software. Without testing, monitoring can quietly fail, and the first time you notice might be during a real incident when it is too late. Measurement and testing turn monitoring into an operational discipline rather than a hope that tools will magically protect you. To bring it all together, monitoring security events and tuning actionable alerts is about converting raw signals into timely, clear decisions that protect sensitive payment environments. Centralized logging gives you the data, but monitoring is the practice of selecting meaningful events, detecting suspicious patterns, and presenting them in a way that humans can use. Actionable alerts are the ones that do not waste attention because they provide enough detail, route to the right people, and align with real response capabilities. Tuning is the continuous improvement loop that keeps alerts relevant as systems and behaviors change, reducing noise without blinding the organization. When monitoring is done well, it helps detect attacks earlier, catch mistakes faster, and preserve the integrity of security controls that payment environments rely on. The result is not constant panic, but steady awareness and timely intervention, which is exactly what a reliable security program aims to achieve.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.